What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hopefully you're having a very blessed and wonderful day. Today's video topic will be a fun video, right? As we're going to be going over some guesses and predictions for villain sets that I personally would like to see pop up in Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Also, quick PSA before we get started though. So I hit 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. Now, I know some of you are probably just like, oh, it's 3K, it's not that much, da 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 da. It may not really seem like much to a lot of people, but it definitely does mean something pretty significant to me, because having a bunch of people who's actually willing to sit here and listen to my takes and opinions will forever be nuts to me, especially if y'all are agreeing with me, right? It's even more crazy. But nonetheless, I definitely do appreciate those of you that are here, that are really here, that's sticking with me throughout this journey of being a content creator. I may not be a rising star overnight. I may not be doing this entirely the way that, you know, I should be doing or following the normal blueprint, but at the end of the day, I'm honest about what it is I do, and I enjoy what I do. And I can definitely say that Suicide Squad, this community is definitely part of the reason why I've been able to make it over this hurdle over the past couple months. So thank you again, and I definitely look forward to what the future holds for not only me and the channel, but for me, the channel, and the community, you guys as well. So before I start, let me go ahead and explain what villain sets are. Now, villain sets are basically full gear sets that you will start to obtain later on as you progress throughout the game. Think of stuff like the Exile gear set for Titans in Destiny 2, or the Kandaki deity set from DC Universe Online. That's the gist of what we're dealing with here. Now, this list that I made up here was a bit hard to make, simply because of the fact that we don't really know what all of the buffs and status effects are in this game, which almost made me not make this video until more information was out. But that's part of the fun in doing stuff like this to begin with. You can just make guesses and predictions, and if you are right, you get to rub it in people's faces. So these villain sets can do various things. One of the main things, for example, is that if you trigger any of the buffs that are attached to the gear pieces, things such as audio and visual markers will trigger for you. For example, you could hear boom, 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 drums going off in the background. You can see green smoke flying everywhere, and a couple of more things that we haven't actually gotten to see yet, because there's still quite a handful of the game that we don't know about. Now, all of the gear sets are villain themed only, right? There's no hero sets, so don't expect to see anything related to Batman, Nightwing, Azrael, Robin, none of them. All of the gear sets are villain themed only. And at this point, we've seen two of them. Now, the first one was actually a Bane gear set that we saw way back in February. And you can see here the enemies who were afflicted have a skull icon over their heads. And no matter the gear set, any enemy that's afflicted will have this skull icon over their head, so you can tell of whether or not who's been marked. So the attached status effect for Bane is something called Crazed. Now, after going over the footage that we have and, you know, context clues connected to who Bane is as a character and what's involved with him as a character, we can pretty much make out a basic example of what this status effect is. So if you look at this clip here, right, I'm gonna show you a clip. If you look at the enemy, notice how he's getting ready to make an attack, and you can tell because the counter shot icon is popping up over his head. I'll zoom in for you. The counter shot icon is there, but he's not actively facing the player. He's facing the other enemy. The craze status effect in Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League makes an enemy attack any other enemy that's in the nearest vicinity, right? Keeping in tune with the villain that it comes from. Whenever a massive dose of venom is taken, even Bane is susceptible to this. Whenever a massive dose is taken, the user ends up losing basic cognitive functions and they turn into a mindless brute. For example, think of Bane back during his final fight in Arkham Origins. He went from the cunning mastermind that he had presented himself to be throughout the entire game into a monster who's trying to wreck everything in his path. Now, in gameplay terms, right, how I'm expecting this to work, how I'm expecting the craze status effect to work is similar to how the Assassin's Creed series handled this idea. In that game, there was a weapon called a Berserk Dart. Now, the Berserk Dart, when applied to an enemy, it would send them into a berserker rage, attacking any and everyone around them until they either died or all the enemies died. And this, to me, sounds like this is what we can expect from that crazed effect in Suicide Squad. Now, the second status that we have would actually be Burn, which could be related to either El Diablo or Firefly. I will admit, I saw some other people say El Diablo, and I was like, Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But then I started thinking about other villains in the Arkhamverse who we've actually seen so far, and I was like, okay, you know what? This would make a lot more sense if this actually ends up being El Diablo. El Diablo makes, oh sorry, not El Diablo. This would make a lot more sense if this ends up being Firefly, because we've seen him before. We've fought him before. We've never seen the El Diablo in the verse before. I don't even think he's been mentioned. I could be wrong, but he doesn't exist in the Arkhamverse at least as of current, right? He's just not a thing here, not yet at least. So we have Burn and we have Crazed. Now we can move on to who I would like to see get a villain set in the game and what status effect they could possibly bring. And I'm only going to name 5 of them because the Arkhamverse has a ton of villains and we would be here all day if I did that. So let's do it this way. If there's anybody that you want that I don't end up naming in the video, drop that villain in the status effect that you would have in mind for their get set down in the comments below, and we can have some fun back and forth with that. Now, first up on the list, we have Man-Bat. So Man-Bat was a villain that was introduced in Arkham Knight who went on a rampage across the city after attacking his wife. Now, the reason I don't say killed is because there's a fair chance that she's alive and could be a monster like her husband. That whole thing was pretty much left open-ended. So for Man-Bat's status effect, I would say a bleed or a siphon effect would pair nicely with him, right? Now, I know that blood has everything and nothing to do with his actual power set, but the man is definitely a bat, no pun intended. So I figured that this would be an easy alley-oop. So attacking any enemy with a bleed status effect would allow you to return health back to you as a portion of the damage that you deal while it's active. The reason why I say portion is because when you're getting the health back in full will definitely be dope. I also feel like it would be too busted. There's got to be some balance in there somewhere. If it ends up working that way, then so be it. But giving us Man-Bat, Man-Bat, vampires, blood sucking life force, I feel like that would be like a fun jump to make. You can give us a life siphon kind of effect. Now next up we have Copperhead. So Copperhead was an enemy that we only fought in Arkham Origins, although she was referenced in Arkham Knight a couple of times. And funny enough, she almost killed Batman in her first time meeting him. Shout out to Alfred for getting that serum done in time and out to Batman. Now, the toxin that Copperhead uses is a powerful neurotoxin, a poison that attacks the nervous system. Now, this would be kind of difficult to work in because I believe it would be a bit too close to another status effect that I have here on the list, but hopefully my idea is different enough that it's not that much of a problem. So in Origins, Batman is forced to find his way out of the building that he's in order to reach the antidote drop location, and he's struggling the whole way there. He's sluggish, he can't stand straight, he's hallucinating, and most importantly, he's dying. How I would imagine this works in Suicide Squad is that this effect would restrict an enemy's movement. They would get slowed for a portion of time, right? They're essentially moving at half speed. I would imagine there would be some enemy types in game that will be a pain to keep track of. Like, for example, the Flash infused Brainiac enemies. They're going to be a pain to keep track of. Or you simply just might need a second breath to catch. So it could even be used for easier setups with different buffs and gear pieces that you might have at the current time. Do I think this would be in the game? Honestly, no. Would it be cool if it was though? Yes. Like I tried my hardest thinking of a comparison to it, but it's like I've seen this effect in games before, but I couldn't really like figure out the right wording for it in a sense, right? I guess maybe the closest I can go is Destiny, because I know there's abilities there where if you throw out correct me if I'm wrong, you would throw out like a void bomb and it would attach tethers to an enemy, and they can only move within that restricted area because they're still attached to that tether and they're slowed. But essentially, the enemies would just be moving in slow motion due to that poison status effect. But that's my take on it. Now, next up we have Maxi Zeus. So this is somebody that we know for a fact exists within the Arkhamverse. We just haven't seen him in person yet. Now, back in Arkham Asylum, you can actually visit his cell where there are Greek symbols written all over the walls, and there's even a book about Greek gods in there as well. We find out during the Road to Arkham incident that he was one of the many villains to actually escape the asylum before Joker launched his takeover in Arkham Asylum. He went missing between the first 2 games, but his nightclub, funny enough, was still up and running in Arkham City. So Is he alive? No idea. He's currently MIA. Now, the effect that I'm thinking of when it comes down to Maxi, it pretty much has to do with electricity, right? So Maxi himself is a co-leader, and he doesn't really have any actual powers. But in some versions, like the Batman 2004, for example, great cartoon, probably one of my favorite iterations of Batman. He uses a high-tech suit that gives him the ability to control and manipulate electricity in order to mimic the powers of Zeus himself. In game, this would simply be an effect that's used to stun enemies on a constant basis. Their movements are constantly interrupted due to them being shocked and taking damage from like pretty much like being tased, right? And that status effect also has the added bonus of jumping over to an enemy that's close to them simply just because, you know, that's how electricity can work. Now, as an added bonus, I guess you could, if you want to be funny, I guess you could really say electrocutioner. But let's be honest, Maxi is way cooler. But I'm actually, no, you know what? Funny enough, like now that I say it, Electrocutioner definitely got like, wait, no, he's dead. Didn't Joker kick? Yeah, no, Executioner is dead. I was just gonna say maybe he'll come back. No, he's not coming back. But you know what? Having a reference to him would be nice. He was definitely one of the funnier moments of the past Arkham games. But again, Maxi Zeus is way cooler. Now, next up, we have a villain that has been with us for 3 of the 4 games in the Arkhamverse timeline, and that is none other than Mr. Freeze. Now, chronologically, we first meet him in Origins, and we don't see him again until Arkham City. Although you can find his cell back at the asylum, it's very hard to miss, and he was also one of the various villains that broke out before Joker launched his takeover on the asylum. So, of course, I'm pretty sure you might have guessed already, Mr. Freeze's gear set would come with a frozen status effect, which is a step further in the same direction as Copperhead's possible status effect that I named before, because they both deal with restricting enemy movement. However, Copperhead's would essentially have them move in a slow motion. Freeze's status effect would literally have them stuck in place. Now, if anything, I'm willing to bet that this status effect in gear set might already be in the game, simply because outside of the main villains like Joker, Scarecrow, Strange, and Rage, Freeze is definitely a standout from the entire roster among the community. He's a fan favorite of Batman's villains in general, and it would be kind of weird to not have a villain set for him in the game. Now, next up would be Scarecrow, one of the main villains in Asylum and the main villain for Arkham Knight. Now, I was not planning to drop him on this list originally, but between him and Joker, Scarecrow was the much easier pick in my opinion personally. Also, if I added in Joker, his damn status effect would have pretty much been Joker Toxin, and I already gave a Toxin status effect to Copperhead, and I didn't feel like doing that again. But also, if we're being completely honest, we know good and goddamn well Joker's gonna have a villain set in the game. It's like I feel like it's a part of Rocksteady's legally binding contract. Joker has to be in every game in some way, shape, or form. Now, Scarecrow is known for using his trademark fear gas, which makes his victims see their worst fears come to life, and for him, it's an insane fear of bats that he's currently dealing with in prison. Now, the status effect would simply be called fear, and funny enough, the visual idea of how this would look is already in another DC-related game, Gotham Knights. So, we look at Robin. Robin has an ability called Wraith, and when triggered, it creates a holographic wraith, which makes nearby enemies afraid, and it spreads fear throughout the duration. So they pretty much stop attacking and try their absolute best to get away from you as fast as possible once they get hit with the fear status. Now, I figured this would definitely be a dope status to have, and just like Freeze, Scarecrow definitely became a fan favorite after Arkham Knight. So why not have a villain set? Why not have a villain gear set for him in a game that's set in the same universe? Also, he's in the same boat as Scarecrow. Sorry, not Scarecrow. He's in the same boat as Freeze. There's no way Scarecrow or people wouldn't have a villain set, but incorporating his fear gas into a gear set definitely would be dope. I imagine like a lot of people would definitely like be able to kind of go nuts with crowd control type builds and things of that nature. But with that being said, that's gonna go ahead and bring us to the end of the video, right? This is just like a little fun video I wanted to toss out simply because I was thinking more and more about the different types of villain sets in game and the villain sets that we can get in the future, because the Arkhamverse definitely has a lot of villains, and seeing as how Suicide Squad is going to be expanding on this universe as a whole and possibly bringing in villains from the other heroes rogue galleries as well, there's even more potential for like possible people that we can see. Like we could see a Cersei set, we could see a Thinker set, that's a Flash villain. We could see a Metallo set. We can maybe see an Atrocity set. You never know. But yeah, that's just pretty much how I feel about it. That's gonna bring us to the end of the video again. Hopefully you all have had a very great and decent time here. Like I said earlier in the video, if there was any villain that I didn't name that you specifically want to see a set for, drop them in the comments below. And again, if you've enjoyed the video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and smack that notifications bell so that you will never miss out on any of my future Suicide Squad related content. And I will catch y'all in the moonlight. Peace.